Welcome to First Things First. I'm Brooke and my pronouns are she and her.
I'm Matty Mills, my pronouns are he and him. And before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record. And today for me, that's the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And for me, it's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Let's get into it, Matty.
Let's get into it. Oh, today we have a very, very special guest on First Things First. It is one of this country's greatest storytellers. Please welcome Troy Cassar-Daley.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you both.
Very deadly guest, actually. You didn't put that in the intro.
Oh, double deadly.
Double deadly.
Oh, it is so exciting for us to have you here, Troy, with us. We know that you are one of our greatest musicians, storytellers, and it makes us so proud that you're a First Nations man and a proud First Nations man.
Yep.
This new work, Between the Fires, now it's some of the best storytelling I've ever heard, actually. I was listening to the song Between the Fires this morning, and how it starts is so beautiful. Can you tell us about what this project means to you and how it came about?
Yeah, look, I lost my mum 18 months ago. And then went into this sort of finishing touring that I was doing. I was in Western Australia when we lost her. And then I got to the stage where the sorry business was pretty heavy. And so I started to go back to her old place where I grew up and sat by the fire. And as a kid, it was between the fire and there was an old scar tree at the back of our property that I used to go and stand and talk to the old people when I was a little fella. My uncle and my mum and dad would take me up there when it was only a small scar. And then I thought, I'm doing all this healing down here. And the songs started to flow. I had about maybe 5-6 songs that I'd written. And I thought, yeah, I better sort of book a trip to Nashville and maybe do it the way I normally would do it so it's quick. But then I got like 10, 15 songs deep into this project. And I thought, I wonder if I could record it at Mum's old house.
Yeah.
So a couple of people I rang said, oh, no, you should go to a professional studio. But 2 other people straight after that went, nah, gee, we can easily loom that house out. And the engineer just said to me, the good thing about it is it's only going to sound like your mum's place.
Yeah. I must say thank you for inviting me to the farm. It was such a beautiful experience to be able to come there and hear you play these songs, some of these songs live, and tell the stories of this body of work. That place felt like home for you. It was a place that was very welcoming and so many memories. So while creating in that space, how different was that from previous years and previous albums?
Oh, look, this was incredibly different. I've never made any sort of recordings, professional recordings at Mum's house or any house, to be honest. So it was a risk. When you hear those drums at the start of Between the Fires, all I hear is my mum's lounge room. And we've had many jams, Brooke, when we were little kids, where we'd sit around with drum kits and guitars and bass guitars, and I can actually hear the same thing I heard when I was 12 in those drums. Isn't that the weirdest thing?
Wow.
And so the other day when it was released, and Sony had sent me through the little snippet thing of the release thing and everything, and a friend of mine just texted me out of the blue. He said, the sound of those drums at the front of that track are beautiful. And I said, well, that's Mum's house.
Wow.
It's actually so nice to listen to these stories because, talking about home and lounge rooms, I distinctly know and can place myself and hear your music in my lounge room in Carnarvon. Isn't that a bit of a full circle weird moment?
Yes.
Yeah, with your music, that takes me back to my home and you're back in your home writing more music for other people to hear in theirs. So it's it's a bit of a spin me out moment because I'm like, my mum and my nana have passed as well, Troy, and actually I was telling these guys, my youngest brother is actually named after you, Troy.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Well,
so you're a part of my family, you know?
I hope he's all right.
Yeah. He's all right. No, he's got a beautiful boy, Harlan Hayes. He's only 4 or 5 months old and he's, thriving. But we grew up, your music just being a part of our household and Uncle Charlie Pride as well. The greats. But yeah, I was actually just thinking of your living room and I was thinking, oh my God, now I'm back in mine at the moment. I was having a little vision.
But when you were a kid, it takes me back to my childhood at that same house. And Charlie Pride, Merle Haggard. The sadder the better normally, Brooke.
Yeah.
Our family loves sad songs, and my cousins still love sad songs. No one's happy at home until someone's howling. Yeah. And so we sort of got to the stage where we set the band up in there, and it brought back all the memories of sitting around with my uncles and aunties who all played.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was waking up in my childhood bed thinking, I'm recording here tomorrow. I was really scared,
my God, that's
actually.
crazy, yeah.
And I'm going, what am I going to do? I was in Mum's art room to get some separation from the drums because the fella said, if you sing too loud, you're going to have to get it all over the drum mics.
Okay.
So he put me in my mum's art room. And as I was mucking around with the guitar, and Brooke, it was the funniest thing, she was a screen printer, the screen fell down off the curtain rod and hit me on the head.
Oh, don't.
And I looked around and I thought, hello. and now I've got
She's here.
Yeah, I got the goosebumps even just thinking that.
Wow.
But it was a little reminder of where I was.
Yeah.
And the respect and love that I had for the place too. You know?
Yeah.
It must have been such a transportive experience to take you back in time, take you back to your childhood. Can you paint a bit of a picture for our listeners of what your childhood looked like at that place?
Well, my childhood, you know, I lived my first 9 years with my nan and pop because when Dad and Mum broke up, Mum pretty much didn't have anywhere to go. But a lot of the times in our culture, everyone always heads back to their parents' place.
Yeah.
So we always see a lot of our grandparents growing up, and we always get a lot of incredible things from our grandparents that we sometimes forget.
Yeah.
So that first 9 years were formative for me, and I think they made me into who I actually am now. And then we moved out there when I was 9. I had to sleep in Mum's bed for the first 2 nights because I was scared of snakes, because I was very winky of snakes. And then I got over that, and then I started to ride the bike for the 4 kilometres up to the bus stop and do all the things you do in the bush. And the things I learned, the music that was in that house were some of the most amazing things I think a child could ever dream of. And there's birds on this record too, Brooke, right? There's black cockatoos and there's curlews, right? And they make it on the record as well. And I arrived one day and got this really beautiful welcome from these black cockatoos. And then I got a beautiful goodbye one night when it was like this curlew. We'd never had curlews at home. Scariest bird I've ever heard in my life. And then I heard it singing out in the distance, and it was only one of them. But I recorded them on my phone. You know, these things are crazy for getting lost in, but they are handy for recording stuff.
Yep.
So they ended up on the record too. So not only did we get a chance to make, you know, a third of the record's about mourning, but it's got some side tracks that are well worth turning off. Look, I've got a photo of my nan, and I had to go through a lot of things, Matty, at home. Even that time I was there when you fellas came out.
Yep.
I was in the process of going through Mum's stuff. And Brooke, a box of photos is going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours easy, just gone. And there was a picture of my nan and her 2 sisters, and they were up at a place called Kangi outside of town. And I used to always ask my mum, what were they doing out at Kangi when they had a house in town? And she said, well, the welfare man was collecting kids that week. And so what my nan would do was take her 2 younger sisters out bush until that black car went. Because he used to do a roundabout Grafton for about a week. And all this stuff that I'd heard from Mum came flooding back as well when I started looking at the photos. They were standing there in their swimmers up at Kangi, big shotguns. They'd been out shooting ducks to eat. And it was just this amazing memory. And I remember Mum saying, yeah, well, once that black car stopped doing the rounds, it was safe to bring him into town.
Yeah, wow.
It's a big story.
Those photos are like sacred relics, aren't they? Like they're everything. I don't have that many photos growing up, and I know instantly when I look at those photos, like they're like you hold on to them and they've got so much history and memories to them. But you flood back. I was having a bit of a spin me moment when I was working in government, and I had that government car, and I'd hate that when that would rock up to my house, and like hearing it from you as well.
Well, my grandmother used to have, she had a wet rag that she would have with her all the time, and she'd make sure if she saw the car, she would run over and wipe the kids' faces to make sure they look clean and well. So, you know, kids are in the yard.
Little snotty nose.
Yeah, snotty nose. Look them in the nose. And
always.
Yeah. And so she would just call them in really quick, get that wet washer and give it a wash under the sink and the laundry and wipe their faces down. Yeah. And this was just reality. It wasn't something that was made up. You know?
Yeah.
So when I saw that photo, all those stories came back. And, you know, at my age now, I think at 54, I think I take the storytelling a little bit more seriously now, whereas in the old days, the stuff you would have listened to, Brookie, would have been a lot more it wasn't really heavy story-orientated stuff. It was just country music,
Yeah.
But
But it's
now,
vibes. It was a vibe.
yeah, definitely. But I think
Going Back Home, come on,
Yeah,
that
Going
song
Back
to
Home.
me, that is everything.
Love songs too.
yeah, love songs, lots of love songs. I used to write a lot for Laurel, and but I think I got to the stage where, and here I was sitting in a motel having a day off on the Red Hot Summer Tour, and I started to fall down a rabbit hole about Windradine.
Yeah.
And this great warrior from Wiradjuri. And suddenly that's one of the side roads. And all the side roads on this record, I think, really do take you somewhere interesting.
Well, you've had such an extensive career. You've put out 11 studio albums. You've been remarkably successful as a country music artist in this country and across the world. What is it now that allows you to be as vulnerable as you are in this new album?
Look, Matty, I think, losing my dad to suicide back in 2019 was a tough one. I sort of went into a shell, was looking for that phone call. I would have thought there was a note or some warning, but he'd had a couple of mini strokes and he was very depressed.
Yeah.
And so I lived with that. I didn't get any counselling, and I was telling a mate of mine on the road about how Dad had taken his own life and took his life on his mother's birthday. It was all this stuff to carry,
Tough.
It was a hard time. And he said, listen, brother, go and get some counselling, If you can't talk to anyone in your family about it, go and sort that out.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it really helped me a lot. And I say to anyone listening that's obviously struggling in that as well, I mean, I felt, first of all, I'm a generation away from those old fellas that thought you were weak if you went to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I had to just have a look at myself in the mirror and go, look, things aren't getting any better. I have to go and get some help. And I did the same. As soon as I finished the counselling from Dad's stuff, I lost Mum, and I was doing the last counselling session on the banks of the river with the funeral director, organising Mum's funeral.
Wow.
And so I said to her, this won't be my last call.
Yep.
But I think after all those experiences that I had packed into those 3 years, I still felt there was something in me to tell. And it's easy to tap into because, you're devastated.
Yeah.
And, the core of this record is about healing.
Yeah.
And light at the end of the tunnel. And between the fires, the fire at home to try and heal that. And there was also a fire with my wife that was, dwindling and going out. And I was so worried because I shut everyone out, Matty. And, once again, counselling, you got to be strong enough to admit you need it.
I attest to that. I've been recently doing exactly that. It's been understanding that, you don't have to do things alone. And sometimes you don't want to confide in mob because you feel like you're putting something on them or it's personal stuff that you're going through. So, having a therapist, I do therapy weekly now. And it's been something that has been monumental in my change, and I feel like there's no stopping for me at the moment. I feel like, it's an investment in yourself. And if you can look at yourself in the mirror one day and be happy with that person because you put in that work.
Exactly.
That's the goal. I feel like, as you've gone forward in your career, there's been more truth telling.
Yeah.
Whether it's about your own personal life
Yeah.
or whether it's about, First Nations stories and storytelling. What drives you to go lean more towards truth and honesty and authenticity now than it did in the past?
I think in the past, a lot of our family stories lived with me, but I never really got a chance to share them. And they were in here. The only time I heard them was when I was sitting at a campfire when we'd maybe have a men's camp.
Yeah.
And the penny dropped one evening. We had a cousin that was passing away from cancer, and he's about to go into palliative care. And it was a really hard trip for us because we knew it was the last time he was going to be back on country with us.
Yeah.
And we all sort of said, trying to break away from the sadness, we said, why didn't Nan let us go across the river to swim at that part over there? And my uncle stood up and goes, well, she always said to us there was a huge massacre that side of the river and it was taboo to go there. And anyway, we all looked at each other and we're all men. We shouldn't be scared on our own country.
Yeah.
We all looked around and the goosebumps started. The birds stopped singing. The wind dropped. And we all looked around at each other and just went, what is going on?
Wow.
And my uncle stood up and he said, the old people know we're here. Just remember, you don't have to be scared. They know you're here.
Yeah.
So I wrote Shadows on the Hill after that.
Yeah.
Because there were 3 trees up there on the hill and about that one particular place we weren't allowed to go to. And then, the first thing I did when I released that song was I got a text from Briggs, and Briggs said, do you mind if I put a beat on this song? He said, because it's got so much more to tell.
Deadly.
He said, to my audience. So that was where the truth-telling started for me. I thought, listen, more people need to hear. This is my grandmother's story, and it's my uncle's story. Now it's mine. And now, when you go on the Red Hot Summer Tour and play it every date when you're playing with Ian Moss, I said to Ian, it's now our story.
Yeah.
It's every Australian's story to own, And it felt so liberating playing it for everyone and saying, I'm not saying this song is to blame anyone. I want to bring everyone to the fire. I want everyone to sit down and have a listen to this. It's truth. You can't deny it.
Yeah. Have you seen that change in audience, or, people wanting to understand, blackfella history or our, the brutal history of colonisation more?
Well, it's a fact. I've only just watched The Drover's Wife.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that film.
And I put it off. I still can't watch Rabbit Proof Fence. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Yep.
And so I was brave enough to go, right, I've got to watch this. I know it's going to be confronting. I know it's truth, though, and I know it's based on a story.
Yeah.
And Leah Purcell is amazing.
Isn't she? Like,
Jeez.
when I think of someone who I look up to as a visionary, it is Leah fucking
She
Purcell.
is.
Oh, I'm the same.
I've
I'm the same.
I've been Baz Luhrmann's EA. She's like my Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I
She's
totally.
amazing.
And I finished watching it on the plane. And now listen,
Yeah.
not a good place to watch things like that on a plane when,
Oh my
when you're
God,
crying your
no.
eyes out like an
Don't.
idiot, right?
You and
so-
Brooke always crying on planes, or what? Brooke's
Yeah.
always crying on planes.
I'm thinking, what am I
way.
doing sitting here watching this movie? I could have kicked myself in the arse.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that truth-telling is really, really prevalent now.
Mm-hmm.
And we now get requests for Shadows on the Hill at
Yeah,
shows.
wow.
We get a lot of non-Indigenous people say, oh, I'd love you to play the Shadows on the Hill. And even at Tamworth this year, there was the Indigenous Showcase, which I love to go to. You always find Roger Knox there.
Yes.
You always find Buddy Knox, who I
Yeah.
love dearly.
Yeah.
And Uncle Roger always comes up and sings a certain song with me.
Yeah.
And I played a song called Windradine from the new record, and I just did it because I felt like playing it. It wasn't even released, And so I'm playing along, and the sun is touching my face in this video, and it's almost like a caress. Now I'm out on Kamilaroi country, amazing place,
Yeah.
and I felt, I don't know, it felt like a hand on my face when I was playing, right? And the story isn't about how Windradine would go and just kill people and burn their houses down, because he did that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make it accessible for everyone. He was the one that, when Rachel Perkins did that documentary, First Australians, he found that whole farmhouse. He'd just been attacked by a raiding party, and he walked to this house, he knocked on the door, and a young fella opened the door, a young Scottish kid, and he spoke to him in Wiradjuri, and he spared that family. So he wasn't just a guerrilla warfare specialist.
Yeah.
He was also a diplomat,
Yeah.
and he also had a heart,
Yeah.
and he could see respect. Once everyone heard it, I was just so proud, because I just felt like it was a moment that I
Yes.
needed to share. But once again, one of my side roads where I want the listener to come for a run with me.
I was thinking, when we're talking about Leah Purcell, like one thing that I've seen her speak on an interview, right, where she was like, innately, like, it's in us, like whatever we pull and put on the screen and like onto paper, it's innately from us. And I think like that's like, I was just thinking, I'm like, we're just such beautiful storytellers and big as yarners, eh? Like
I think that's where oral history, Brooke.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
It is a powerful tool, and I guess it's probably only been since we only started those men's camps because my cousin was so sick.
Yeah.
And we never got to see everyone unless it was a funeral.
Yeah.
And I used to
no.
hate that. And I used to absolutely hate it. And I said, boys, let's call a men's camp. If we want to cry out there,
Yeah.
we can cry. There's no girls. We don't have to
Yeah.
be embarrassed.
Yeah.
If we'll bring the guitars. We have a limited amount of lingo left in our dialect up there, but we can still sing up the country with the songs we sing. It might be a
Yeah.
Charlie Pride song, whatever. We can still sing up that country. And, we had a young non-Indigenous fella stumble into our camp on the second night, and he had a six-pack under his arm,
Yeah.
and he was lost.
Oh.
I'm talking dreadfully lost, right? And he's pulled up, and he sat down. We said, sit down, bud, sit over there. So he sat down, and then he's sort of very charged up. And then he's looked around, and he's realised, he's just sat down with a whole bunch of Guri people.
Yeah.
And so he's sort of went like this. He said, what are you fellas doing here? And we said, we're having a men's camp. And I said, where'd you come from? He said, I've lost my friends. He said, I can hear them somewhere. He said, but I've lost my direction. And then he looked at me and he saw me with the guitar and he goes, you're not, eh?
What a spin out. I would have freaked out. I would have been like, wait, what was in that drink? Drink Cassar-Daley in the middle of the bush?
He would have thought he was maybe tripping, you know. He might have thought, well, I don't know whether it's been the grog or whether I had a mushroom or something, but something was going on here. I think I see old Troy sitting at the campsite. So we did a song for him, and then we pointed where his camp probably was, and we could hear those young fellas. They were a fair way off. But, one of my younger cousins just walked him halfway there, and then he could see the light and got him home. But the moral of the story was anyone is welcome at our fire.
Yeah.
I don't care what walk of life you are, what background you've got.
Yep.
And when I wrote a song on the second last record called Back on Country, it basically talks about if you are born on that country and you're non-Indigenous and you feel connected, it's your responsibility to look after that country too.
Yeah,
just like us. It's not just our job. It's everyone's job.
Yeah.
And don't leave stuff at the campsites. Don't take too many fish. Yeah. We only take a certain amount of turtles. We were taught that.
Yep.
If you take too many, it's very, very bad.
Yeah.
You always release your first fish.
Yeah.
All that stuff that our uncles taught us.
Yeah.
I got a beautiful warning one day up in North Queensland when I walked across this river into someone's boundary. And the young fella who was the young song man pulled me to him and wet his hands in that river, wiped my ear and blew in my ear. And he said, welcome to my country. And I've never felt anything like it.
Yeah, wow.
We did the same thing for this young fella sitting at our fire too. We sang him a song, like I say, and made him feel completely welcome. And then we got him on his way with his tinkly little bottles.
It's such a beautiful visual. It's, acceptance, but it's also nurture, it's care. It's men being vulnerable too. And I love that because I feel like, as blackfellas, men in general, we feel like we need to be, tough, hard exterior, but to be able to be soft around other blokes and to be able to, share your feelings and be authentic about that and not feel shame doing it.
Brooke,
That's
I think
important.
you'll find the same thing with young women at the moment too. My daughter's 23.
Yeah.
And I said to her, allow yourself to be vulnerable too, Dort.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you got to be the tough little career woman and all that stuff. If you need to break down and have a shitty day, allow yourself to do it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, she's not driven or motivated. She just cruises.
Yeah.
But she cruises in a really positive way.
Yeah.
But every now and then things get on top of her. And that's what happens with girls. But also I have that expectation. She goes, oh no, social media just tells us, not to be too vulnerable and we've got to just keep.
I cry all the time.
Yeah, well, and she can have a good ball with me.
I watched you guys when we did the NITV 10-year anniversary. You guys sang together, and my God, that was such a beautiful moment. I just wish I had a dad like you. I would just, I do.
Easy, Brooke. I don't know whether you want to wish that, but you haven't seen the bad side of me.
Pete is my adopted dad, and he's similar, I guess, Troy. Like he always has a guitar on his back.
Yeah.
Like that's when I met him. He had a guitar on his back, and he believes the same things where music can bring so many people together, and again, like bringing them in the fire and. He's not even black fella, he's just grown up and worked in those communities, the same values. Like he's just so encouraging. And so when I saw you guys singing, I was like, I want that with my dad.
Well, look, you've probably got other things too, Brooke, that other people don't have. And there's a lot of those things. I was sitting with Jem one day at the Blues Fest up there at Byron Bay. And we were watching Uncle Archie Roach, right?
Yeah.
On Sunday morning. And that's where that whole thing dropped for me too. The penny dropped about. He was explaining about whether you're white, black, doesn't matter. You have a role. You have a role.
Yep.
You belong here.
Yep.
It's a place we're responsible for. And just hearing that felt like I'd almost gone to church.
Yeah.
Because he was so spiritual in his approach, but he had the 500 people that were stuck in that tent. He had them all eating out of the palm of his hand, which a good storyteller will do. And I looked at Jem. Jem was crying. He had this song called The Old Mission Road.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. And I'm looking at Laurel, my wife's crying, and we're all just a mess.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is what we're here for.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted to watch Buddy Guy and we wanted to see John Mayer and all that stuff, but I got the biggest effect out of Uncle Arch.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just, it was the thing that really moved
That's
me.
so crazy that you've said that because I have been absolutely smashing Uncle Archie Roach's music lately. And I had this moment, right? And I think, you know, you would probably have these moments throughout your career where you're like, how the friggin' hell did I get here? I look around and I'm like,
Always.
like, I just think, you know, and you've probably had some major highlights and crazy moments, but I was just sitting in my lounge room, folding the washing, listening to Uncle Archie Roach, and that song just made me feel like I'm just so content. Like I've been through all of this shit in my life.
Yep.
I've created my own story. I've rewritten my own stories. I maybe not have turned it into music, but I definitely have turned it into something, and I think I'm like proud of that. That all comes from, I guess, from the people that built me up too, you know, and like listening
And
to
the exciting part is too, it's only just starting.
well, that's what I feel like. I've only just getting started. I've like let and shed this stuff.
Yep.
And there's probably moments in your career where you felt heavy and you felt weighted, and then you like and you shed it and you just feel like you lift it again, and then you go through it again, and then you like and I just think like Uncle Archie is just a really healing man, and I think I'm really excited. I haven't listened to the album yet, obviously, but I'm really looking forward to listening to Between the Fires. But I also think it's very fitting because the NAIDOC theme this year is what is it, Matty? It's
I don't know. I didn't bring my black card today.
he's playing the one. It's Keep the Fire Burning.
Keep the fire burning. There we go.
Yes.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for fires. You know, that's how we survived
Yeah.
for a long, long
Actual.
time. And, you know, when I looked at even Leah's movie the other day, and it was shot in the snowy mountain area there, and it was so cold.
Yeah.
And you know the importance of a fire when it's that cold.
I know.
So it really is a great theme, and it is an invitation, I think, too, as far as if that's going to be what everyone's going to be yarning about at NAIDOC this year. That should be an invitation for every Australian, you know.
Actual,
And I rang and checked on everyone after the referendum and stuff.
Yeah.
Because there were so many people who were devastated, who felt... I was devastated for my grandparents mainly because they are still not mentioned in our document of this country.
Yeah.
And they were hardworking, honest, Indigenous people who never put a foot wrong, never got in trouble with the police. I've seen all their letters to the Department of Housing applying to rent a house.
Wow. Yeah.
And then one of the lines in the thing I was showing Paul Kelly and Rachael Perkins one night, it said, we've been down to see their dwellings at Coffs Harbour in the tents. As much as there's only dirt floors, the kids seem to be in good order. They will have no trouble fitting into white society.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
So people need to see this.
I think that if
so
people saw more letters like that,
Right?
they would at least
Understand.
have some empathy
Yeah.
for the struggles of our great-grandparents, and what they went through. I saw that yesterday in that film. That's why it sort of hit me pretty hard
Yeah.
when they started looking like, you know, taking kids and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, I do think I looked through those letters, brother, you know, the same week that you came up to visit Mum's, and I sat there, I went, wow, I'm still learning. I'm 54 and I'm still hungry to learn.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I've got much more to learn until I drop off the perch. And I want to go out, mightn't be good for the crowd, but I want to go out on stage.
Oh, okay, Dolly Parton. That's what she said. Dolly Parton said, I'm never retiring. I'll just drop dead on stage singing a song.
Yeah,
And I
imagine,
was like,
imagine the crowd. I'll never get over that.
what do you want the audience or your fans, when they're listening to this record, what do you want the impact to be on them? What do you want them to take away?
Yeah.
Well, look, it's an interesting question, Matty, because when you make a record, you first of all make exactly the stage of the life you're at right now. And I'd just lost Dad 12 months before. I'd lost Mum, and you are documenting a small part of that, and you're also going on this big journey of memories. I would hope people would love to come along for the ride of the learning I've done.
Yeah.
Like just the Windradine story alone, for me, has been I became quite obsessed with him.
Yeah.
I'm going to visit him when I go to Bathurst. I'm going to visit his grave and thank
So
him.
there's a site there?
There's a site on someone's farm.
Wow.
And I'm going there. I'm getting in the hire car.
Yep.
I'm going to call the farmer
Yeah.
who owns the property, and he absolutely lets people come in if they want to pay their respects.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
in this record, you know, like I say, I want to take people for a ride because music is a transportation business.
Yep.
It does take you somewhere. But I want to make sure that they see the light, see the healing on the way through that middle part of the record. But when it comes to a little turn off somewhere, come with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard.
Yeah.
Some of it's hard to listen to. There's one on there called Good and Bad, a song called Good and Bad. It talks about my wife and I on the stage we were at.
Yeah.
You know, she put on a bit of a shit fight at the fire after I lost Mum.
Yep.
Caused a lot of friction with me. And, you know, and the last verse talks about take a look in the mirror at us, at who we've become.
Yep.
And I hope it's a reflective thing for people too.
Yeah, people will connect with that. That's just life. Life is not like
It is.
It's up and down, linear. Like we
yeah,
always
And it's
talk
not
about
perfect, Brooke, not
grief.
perfect, eh?
No, oh my God, no, far from. But
Yeah.
you know, healing and grief and experiences are all going to be. You know, and that I think I love that about music actually, and especially like being able to capture that is like your life album, right? Like from where you were, and then gradually.
It's a time capsule.
And it's a never-changing thing
Yeah.
too.
I love that. Like, you know, I journal and write things, but like I could never capture in that moment. I'm like, I'm obsessed with people like artists that write at different stages of their life, and I've been a part, and you've actually been a part of that. You admire it so much more, and you actually love an artist, and you feel like your family and you're a part of their life as well. Like,
Well, it's funny, you mentioned that journal thing, right?
yeah.
Now, you're going to go back in another year
Oh,
and you're going to have a look at what you were going through. And
I
you want to
already
talk about learning. I mean, I do the same.
Yeah.
And at the moment I haven't stopped writing because I've got a few friends that are going to be hitting me up for songs very shortly, and I want to have a few things ready. So I actually haven't stopped writing since the record.
Yep.
And it's a journal. It's an actual journal.
Yeah.
It really is. You're writing stuff down all the time. I was writing stuff on the plane when I finished drying my tears last night. I got my pad out and I started writing a few other ideas of things I wanted to cover off on.
Yep.
Once again, truth-telling stuff.
Yeah.
There is some truth in this, and there's some hard songs on there.
Yeah.
There's one called Congratulations that talks about saying to my wife, congratulations, you finally pushed me away.
Yeah. Wow.
And she said, is that what I did to you?
Yep.
And I said, well, if you listen to the end of the song, it's what we did to us.
Do you let the music speak in that moment, or do you give more context to the person who it's about?
Well, I just let it flow.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a picture of my mum on the lyric sheet on some songs.
Yeah.
I had a picture of Laurel.
Yeah.
I had a picture of my kids. Then for Windradine, I needed the help from my grandparents because I wanted to talk to the older people and get support from them. So I put a picture of Nan and Pop there as well. So all the way through, and even Slim Dusty's widow, Joy McKean.
Yeah.
I had a photo of her funeral notice.
Wow.
Because she's one of my heroes as a songwriter, and I'd look at her and say, what do you reckon?
Oh, that's so nice.
You know,
I love
and
that.
I think
That's
it was all-
Consultation.
powerful.
Yeah. And I think, what do you reckon, Joy? Is it all right or is it shit?
Yeah.
Because she'd be honest with me.
Oh, I love that.
Totally
And you can
honest.
picture her saying that, I reckon. When you look at that photo, you're like, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, this is the segue that I needed before we wrap things up. So
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, how am I going to ask Troy Cassar-Daley about the new Beyonce country album? And here we are.
Bless him.
Great.
You
So
know-
your favorite songwriter is Joy. My favorite artist is Beyonce.
Oh, I love Beyonce.
As a black fella, I need your reaction to Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album.
Look here, I've heard 2 songs, right?
Okay.
I've heard 2. I've got to be honest, I haven't heard the whole record.
Yeah.
But it's art. And there's one thing that I really love about her, and she said something like, I wanted to do this because it's a genre that I've never felt welcome in.
Yes.
Now, I never thought about it like that.
So she spoke about an experience she had at the Country Music Awards with the Dixie Chicks, where everyone said she shouldn't be on that stage or shouldn't be in that room
because she's a black woman.
because she's a black woman.
And excuse me,
Yeah.
But
I
didn't
mean-
she grow up in Texas? Isn't that like...
Doesn't she have a southern accent? Doesn't she have a
I think that
Country
and I
background.
also saw a whole bunch of people saying, "Oh, you can't tell an artist to use just crayons and then pastels and then oil paints."
Yeah.
You're able to use any medium you want,
100.
which to
Yeah.
me says that if she thinks that she can make a country record, which is probably sold through the roof,
Yeah.
and I think it's great because
Yeah.
look at the wave of country that's coming through here and going through the States,
Yeah.
and it's a reinvention of that. I think the lyric is what gets people in with country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially younger generation too, Brooke. They love integrity in a lyric again.
Yeah.
And they like a story.
Yeah.
And it's
love
not
a
just a
story.
sugar hit,
And there's nothing like a heartbreak country song.
oh, look.
The more heartbroken they are, the better,
I
say.
totally agree.
I'm someone who
there.
lifts weights to ballads at the gym. Like, I love a slow song.
If I bring out a George Jones song and we're sitting at our men's camp, if most of us aren't crying, I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed.
One of the reasons I did ask that, and this will be the final question, I think, but one of the reasons I did ask that is because you've been in the game now for so long. Have you seen a shift when it comes to First Nation storytelling in this genre particularly?
Look, I actually have. I think when I first started, I came in really green. I wasn't a very good lyricist, but I've seen a lot of young people coming through now, like young Lauren Ryan, who I'm really inspired by.
Oh,
and there's a lot of young
grew up
kids
on the same street, me and her best mate.
They
just a
are
beautiful,
best
beautiful
mates,
kid.
yeah.
And I spotted her when she first went into Star Maker, and I just thought to myself, wow, I just love what she did a lingo song of Flame Trees.
Yeah, she covered Flame Trees.
She had me at Flame Trees, but let alone singing it in Gomeroi.
Yeah.
And I just went, wow, get out of town. And so that storytelling for me and that sharing of her lingo is what brings people in.
Yeah.
People know Flame Trees, but they don't know it in that language.
Yeah.
And she's gone to the trouble of, dissecting it all down. Yeah. And when she sings it, everyone just stops.
Yeah.
And I've felt a shift. Yeah. And I've also felt a shift in honesty.
Yeah.
And a lot of the younger artists that are coming, I've got a couple of young artists who, if they could just stay out of jail, they would be incredible. Mm-hmm. And I get on them sometimes and talk to them just to G them up.
Totally.
At the mission that they're living at. Yeah. Because they just fall into the same old thing all the time. But they are super talented. But you can't give up on them.
Yep.
You just can't.
Yeah.
No.
And I'm hoping that, once you get over the hurdles of, your wife's got a domestic violence thing out on you because you carried on after the pub.
Yeah.
You've got to cut that out of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't be just a person that everyone expects you to be.
Yeah. Another statistic. We don't want that. Yeah.
It's just, it really does typecast us, really. And I keep saying to him, stay away from the pub.
Yeah.
Get back to playing football.
Yep.
Go and get visitation rights for your kids.
Yep.
And write songs.
Oh, therapeutic. Let it out through music.
Sing for your old people.
Yes.
Sing for the elders that are there. And then, he's listening, but he has little diversions.
Yeah.
Which is, I get it.
Yeah.
I've got cousins that have been in and out of jail too, and I get it.
Well, just want to say thank you so much for being an inspiration, not just for people in music, but for mob in general. You've been someone who's been at the forefront of the industry, but also at the forefront of Black people's minds, because we see how much you've done, and we feel so proud knowing that, a First Nations person is doing that. So I want to say thank you.
Look, I appreciate it. I do all this for my grandparents.
Yeah.
I think I always wanted to make them proud when I was living with them.
Yeah.
My nan taught me stuff, and I look at those photos still for inspiration. And of course, my own kids and, my wife and my mum and dad, I think we have responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I take it more serious now. I'm older. Yeah. Whereas when I was younger, I didn't. Yeah. I didn't understand the weight. Yeah. But now I do. Yeah. There is a weight on us. Yeah. And we have to keep walking.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Troy. Sorry,
no
I
worries,
just wanted
Brooke.
to say thank you as well.
No, thank you. And say good day to Troy, eh?
I will.
Oh, well, thank you so much. If you're listening today, make sure you check out Between the Fires. It'll be out very soon. If the mob want to see you on tour, if our listeners want to catch you on tour, is there a tour announcement coming?
Yeah, look, we've got a really big tour announcement that's already come out on our website, but the record's out 10th of May, and I'm excited to share all this stuff with them. And it's like I say, it's not all sad. It's healing, and I think there's sometimes when we lose our elders, which we do, we just have to have the tools. And this record gave me the tools to deal with it. That's for sure.
Wow. Yeah, it's a journey. Hey,
yeah,
love it.
Brooke, get your tissue box ready. That album will be sent your way today.
Don't even, because I will be. I love a good
Should
cry.
be calling me later.
Not on a plane, Matty. Not on a plane. No. And lovely to talk to you both. And like I say, seeing young First Nations kids doing this sort of work and in the media, it really makes my heart sing. It really does. And there's got to be more of it. So thank you.
Well, you paved that path for us.
You did.
Thank you. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening to First Things First. If you love us, leave us a little rating or a little review.
And if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our socials. My handle is at brooke.blurton and Maddie's handle is at It's Maddie Meals. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Woo.